I'm CJ Peterson, and welcome to The Journey is Real. We talk to real people with real passions who share a real portion of their heart. Today, my guest is Jeff Rasley, and we've titled his podcast, Philanthro-Trekking. You have to get lost before you can be found. Thank you for coming on today, Jeff.
Thank you for having me, CJ. It's my pleasure.
Okay, when we were talking about this, for you to explain it was unique. So please explain to those who are listening, what is Philanthro-Trekking?
Okay, I studied Greek in college and seminary, and philanthropos is the root Greek word for philanthropy, and philos means love, and thropos means humanity. So philanthrotrekking is combining philanthropy with trekking. So love of humanity combined with trekking.
Nice. How did you come up with this idea?
Well, it evolved over several years of me going regularly to the India and Nepal Himalayas and doing a lot of treks and mountain climbing over there.
How,
And
I got to back that up a little bit more. How did you even start that? What made you want to even go there? I mean, take us back, because
yeah,
I
well,
like, I have, some people love jumping out of planes. I have no desire to jump out of a perfectly good flying airplane. So what made
I've
you
done
want to
that
make that
too.
leap? Oh, geez. So what made you want to make that leap from being just here to wanting to climb a beautiful snowy mountain? I mean, I do.
Yeah, Indiana is pretty flat, so it wasn't a sort of normal thing that Hoosiers do. But I turned 40, and according to my wife, I was manifesting midlife crisis symptoms, which she was correct about. Um, and one of the reasons is because I was extremely busy. I was the head of a small law firm. I was a very active father with two kids. I was involved in all sorts of extracurricular activities. I was director on several corporations, very active in the church. And I was just busy, 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 busy.
Mhm.
So, and I was getting grumpier and grumpier. And I came home one day from the office, and my wife slaps this brochure down on the table in front of me and says, "Why don't you go do this?" And it was a brochure about hiking the Mount Everest Base Camp Trail.
Wow.
And what she realized was adventure travel had always been an important part of my life.
Mhm.
And because of the busyness, I hadn't done anything really adventurous in terms of travel for several years. And she realized that this was something my soul needed. So that was her therapy for the midlife crisis. Go take a hike, buddy, and do it on the other side of the world.
I appreciate her bluntness, because that took you on an interesting path. Being a nature kid myself, I get it. If I'm not in nature for long periods of times, I get a little grumpy myself. And so it's like getting back to nature brings me closer to God. And so when we do the daily devotions, we go to church, we have a relationship with him. But for me, I connect with him on a stronger level when I'm in nature itself, and what his hands have created.
Yeah, same here. I would express it a little bit differently, but yeah, that's uh, being out in the Himalayas for me is like being in the most magnificent cathedral there is. Um, so that was the experience I had when I went over there for the first time, which was in 1995. And I fell in love with being up in those mountains, the spectacular,
Kind
magnificent
of,
beauty
kind
of it.
kind of take us along that, because I mean, the excitement and the nerves kind of mixed all together with getting up of an airplane, knowing you're going to be climbing Mount Everest. What was that like?
Well, first of all, I didn't climb Mount Everest. I was with a trekking group.
Okay.
Um, And in fact, one of my best friends from Indianapolis came with me. So the two of us joined this group, and we hiked on the trail that leads to Mount Everest.
Okay.
Uh, and so, but that experience just turned me on, and I wanted to go back. But I wanted to go back not just as a trekker, but as a climber. So I took a couple climbing courses in West Virginia, and then I went back and climbed my first Himalayan mountain a couple of years later. And then I just kept going back and climbing other mountains, and eventually became a leader and hooked up with what we call an outfitter company, a
Hmm.
Kathmandu-based trekking mountaineering company, and organized groups and led groups and started writing about it and had a number of articles published, eventually a book and another book. But all along the way, I was doing initially just small little individual philanthropic projects like collecting clothes and educational materials for a school, donating a couple $1,000s to a women's shelter, things like that, which were done primarily through my church. But I eventually connected with this one particular village called Bassa,
Hmm.
and had just an amazing, wonderful experience connecting with this one little remote village, and wrote a book. That was really the first book that I wrote about
And what
this
was that
whole
called?
experience, which is called "Bringing Progress to Paradise." And then the Bassa Village Foundation grew out of that.
Oh,
So,
neat. So like a portion of the proceeds of the books go to it, or how does that work?
well, well, so this I was on this mountaineering expedition with the outfitter company called Adventure Geotreks, and Adventure Geotreks is owned by a guy from Bassa Village. His name is Niru Rai, and he hires for porters and guides and cooks, uh, guys, occasionally women, but mostly men from Bassa Village. And so in 2006, I spent 25 days on this expedition with all these guys from Bassa Village. And they told me about this little 3-grade school they had in their village and how they really wanted to add a fourth and a fifth grade. And when I got back to Kathmandu and was having dinner with Niru and Ganes, who was our chief guide, they asked me if I could raise $5,000 and for the school, and they told me that that would buy all the materials to add 2 classrooms and would pay 2 teachers' salaries for 3 years. Teachers,
Wow.
yeah, teachers were paid $40 a month.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so I,
I mean, how could you say no to that?
yeah, I couldn't. And so, what I wanted to do is I wanted to get other people involved. I mean, I could have, donated the 5,000 grand myself, but I ended up um, asking friends who had been on treks with me, some of the members of my church, and then also this Quaker um, community, they call it Quaker meeting, that I connected with. Um, and so a group of about 30 people raised the money. And then we thought this was such a wonderful thing. A group of us trekked to Bassa Village. We were only the second, what they call white people who would ever come to the village.
Oh, wow.
Uh, and so it was just this amazing experience of being with these people who were living the same way they had for 500 years.
That
No,
would
no,
be, I'm a history buff. That would be like extremely fascinating for me. I
yeah, I mean,
can't imagine what
there's,
that's like.
no electricity, no running water, no radio, no TV, no telephone, cooking all their food over open fires. They eat what they grow what they eat. So it was just a really And they were just so loving and so grateful to us for having donated this money for their school. Um, they literally covered us in flowers, the
Oh,
group who went there. Um, and so, I wanted to go back, and I've been back 5 times with groups of people, and we,
so you get to see the school and its functioning and knowing that you were had a hand in that.
yeah, in fact, the school has a new building. We eventually, one of our projects was a whole new building and water, electricity, a medical clinic.
Oh, wow.
We're working with the village through the foundation. We've sort of um, brought to the village all of the basic infrastructure of you know modern education and healthcare, uh, electricity, water, has to offer. So the lives of the villagers have really changed dramatically in 15 years.
Wow, that's huge. So you have other books that you've written. Are these books along the same lines or what are they?
Yeah, they're all fairly different, because I'm not, sort of tied to feeling like I'm writing to make a living off my royalties. I write whatever I feel like writing about. I've written 3 novels, a couple books about sports, um, and another adventure travel book all about going to islands, solo kayaking,
Have you
scuba
ever thought
diving.
have you ever thought about writing like a fiction or nonfiction version? Nonfiction
uh,
with a fiction twist of, what you did to help this village?
well,
The author
yeah,
is just stories are like going everywhere in my head right now.
yeah, I haven't. I mean, I've written fiction, but I haven't based any of the fiction I've written in the Himalayas. But that would be fun to do. That's a good idea.
To kind of share your experience with the rest of the world.
Hmm.
I think that'd be so unique. Well, I love what you're doing with that. And so you're encouraging other people to join this Philanthro-Trekking as well, to kind of give them the same experience of, you have to lose yourself to find yourself in essence.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the title of my last book about all of my adventures in Nepal and about the development of the Basa Village Foundation, the title of that book is "You Have to Get Lost Before You Can Be Found." And there's 2 levels to it. One level is I actually got lost up on a
Like
mountain,
literally got lost on the mountain.
literally lost on a Himalayan peak by myself.
Oh
I
dear.
got separated from our group, spent about 8 hours trying to find my way back to our base camp, and eventually did. And so that was sort of a microcosm of what it feels like to be lost in life
Mhm.
and then find your way and be with a community of people who love you and you love, and how meaningful that is. And so the greater theme of the book is that, and how we're all on this planet together, um, and finding yourself is always involved with finding a community, being
Mhm.
part of a community, your family, your neighborhood, your town. And so uh, anyway, that's
I
the
mean,
sort of
we can function by ourselves, but we weren't meant to. And so
right.
when you're with a community, you're stronger. Like we moved here in 2019 and we had like tons of book shows for that first year. I think the longest we were in one place was the longest we were home was all of maybe 4 days before we took back off. My parents were sick. And so it was like trying to balance everything in there. We didn't really have a chance to make friends. So we kind of connected a little bit with the neighbors around us, but it wasn't until the snow and ice storm hit Texas just this last February where we
Hmm.
really started connecting with people because as people we needed to function. We had some stuff they needed, they had some stuff that we needed, and we were able to work together to make it through. It might sound kind of tiny to make it through the week, but it was a rough week for Texans. I mean, we're not used to that weather. our houses were not made for that weather. And so people's pipes were bursting. We didn't have water for like 80% of the week. We didn't have electricity for about 90% to 95% of the week. And so we had to basically strip back down to pioneer days. I joke that 2020 was different levels of Jumanji, and that, by the time we headed into 2021 and we hit February, that's the Oregon Trail version of Jumanji. So we all had to kind of function together. And it's like when you function together with a group of people, it makes you stronger.
Yeah, exactly. And this pandemic experience for all of us, I think is such an opportunity to more deeply appreciate what being involved in a community means. I mean, this meeting with people by Zoom, um, seeing people with their faces half covered with masks.
Mhm.
It's just, at least for me, it certainly made me really want to get back into my actual physical in-person involvement with other people.
Yeah, it's like my love language is physical. And so for me not being able to hug anybody has been torture
Mm.
for me. So Zoom is great because I can talk to people, but I can't hug them. And so being a hugger, it's kind of painful, this whole thing. So
Yeah, I, I I feel your pain.
somebody feels it with me. So yeah, it's been an experience. And you just kind of learn to go with the flow. So what down the road does Philanthro-Trekking look like for you? Do you take groups over there, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's what I've been leading groups for years now, but also just organizing groups that I don't lead, that other people within the foundation will lead, or just that with the outfitter company Adventure Geo Trucks will take care of.
Mhm.
We call me the Adventure Geo Trucks American liaison because I, help them plan out the itinerary
Mhm.
for groups and individuals. Um, but the foundation has grown. I actually stepped down as president a couple of years ago. I'm still on the board and still very active with it. I'm the corporate secretary. Uh, Having been a lawyer for 30 years, I usually get stuck with whatever writing an organization needs. So I agreed to take on that duty. But there's now younger leadership,
Mhm.
and it's great to see younger people stepping up and carrying on something that I started.
So it's like you've taken your midlife crisis and you've converted it and used it to not just help yourself, but you've helped a whole village of people along with the other people along the way for the trekking. And so I love that. I love that you've made something permanent. You know what I mean? You've taken something hard and you've made it a blessing to somebody else, and a permanent blessing it is.
Yeah, I mean, what I wanted to do when I sort of started on the journey of moving beyond just being an adventure traveler to being a philanthro-trekker was to uh, bring other people to the Himalayas, and so fellow Americans could experience what I did, and then also to benefit the Basa area of Nepal, which is still a very poor area, and to turn that into something that would last and go beyond my partner Niru and me. Our dream has realized, and in fact, our last corporate meeting, we decided we're now going to go to another area and move beyond the Basa area because we've done everything that really needs to be done for
That
Boston.
that is amazing. I applaud you on that. That is incredible. I mean, you're affecting future generations, and that's something you can't put a price on. So I do applaud you for that. For people who want to know about you or your books, Well, how do they find you online?
I have a personal website, which is my full name, Jeffrey, Jeffrey, Rasley, Rasley.com. I also have an author page on Amazon, or just Google my name and you'll find a lot of the articles I've written. And my website has an email connection.
Mhm.
So I'm happy to hear from anybody personally who's interested in trekking, the foundation, books, whatever, email me.
Awesome. And we have about 3 minutes left. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, I guess the message I would like to convey most fundamentally to your listeners is that whether you're feeling very content with your life or whether you feel somewhat lost, um, one of the ways to just feel more sort of passion and juice as your you know the title of your podcast, The Journey is Real, is to make your personal journey more real,
Mhm.
and do that by challenging yourself, get out there, try something different, but be sure to maintain your family, your community connections, because if you get lost, it's not very fun to not
Yourself.
find your way back. So the journey should always, end in a loving embrace with family and community.
Mhm. I mean, money can come and money goes, but the lasting effect that you've left on the people, and not just the people of the village, but the people that you've connected with the trekking as well, is something that you cannot put a price on. And
Yeah, I agree. You can buy things and you can buy the opportunity to have experiences, but you can't really buy an experience.
mhm,
It becomes you.
yeah, and it becomes a part of you, and you got to jump in with both feet. So, thank you for coming on today, Jeff. We really appreciate you sharing your heart and sharing about Philanthro-Trekking, as well as where your journey went from there. I applaud your wife for to go away because it allowed you the opportunity to not just help yourself, but like I said, help others in the process, help an entire village, and future generations of that village are going to be affected by what you've done. So I do thank you for that. And thank you for sharing your heart with others.
Well, thank you very much for having me, CJ. The time went so quickly.
I know,
Uh,
right?
yeah, I hope maybe we'll get to talk again someday.
Definitely. For those who want to find out more about Jeff, you can find him online, and his website is JEFFREYRASLEY.com. And thank you for listening to The Journey is Real, where we talk to real people with real passions who share a real portion of their hearts. I'm CJ Peterson of CJPetersonWrites.com. Until next time.